Orthos. Séptimo. Orthos. Panis.
Age of Mythology is back, and look at these graphics, look how amazing these graphics are! Look at these villagers! Age of Mythology is a spin-off of the Age of Empires series, a name much more recognized in the world of RTS games. Practically everyone who grew up in the 90s and 2000s played an Age of Empires at some point. It's a series that Microsoft has managed to revive impressively well in an era where RTS games were sadly forgotten. They created remakes of the main entries, complete with DLCs and constant updates, launched Age of Empires 4 and included these games in esports, where gamers gather in a castle to play Age of Empires 2, which is frankly incredibly epic. However, Age of Empires was never my favorite. When I played them as a kid, I could never complete all the campaigns in the game, and they are actually very good. They let you step into the shoes of great historical figures and live their adventures, but I was too young to fully appreciate them. That's when Age of Mythology came into the picture. Released in 2002, I saw it for the first time when visiting a friend from preschool, and it blew my mind in a way Age of Empires never had. It was a simpler game, focused more on presentation and impact than on strategy and competition. There aren't as many civilizations to choose from compared to Age of Empires, so there are fewer alternatives for creating unique strategies to guarantee victory. But each of these civilizations drastically changes how you interact with the game, which in my opinion makes it more fun. Plus, you don't just have human units, you can also create mythical beasts that fight in your army, and of course what blew every kid's mind back then was the possibility of creating Titans. You probably know Age of Empires, right? That game where you create little people who go off to fight. Okay. Now, imagine if in Joan of Arc's campaign you could summon
a giant Cerberus that sends entire armies flying and destroy cities just by stepping on them.
Microsoft should be in jail for inducing boners in my fragile little child mind. Let's dive in this game, and what better way to start than by going through the campaigns, which force you to get familiar with all the civilizations. This campaign is also recognized as one of the best campaigns ever created in an RTS game, so fair warning, there will be spoilers. Unlike Age of Empires, which include several separate campaigns with different protagonists, civilizations, location, and historical moments, Age of Mythology packs all of this into a single main campaign, uniting different civilizations and protagonists into one fantastic story. Our story begins with Arkantos, a hero of the Atlantean civilization, who are technically the Greeks, but it'll make sense later. Just remember this, they are Atlanteans in the story, but actually they are Greeks in the game. Okay? Arkantos is dreaming that he's fighting old enemies until Athena interrupts his dream to warn him of new dangers threatening Atlantis in the near future. He wakes up and discusses with the city leader Krios whether to join the ongoing battle at Troy. Arkantos says he won't go because by the time they arrive, the war will probably be over and he's not going there just to watch Brian Cox getting laid with Diane Krager in front of everyone. But they are interrupted by Krakens attacking Atlantis alongside pirates, and they must defend the city. Now, if you ever play Age of Empires, the Greeks are the civilization most similar in gameplay to those games, which is why the game starts here. We have 4 resources to gather, using villagers created in a town center. Food can be gathered by hunting, collecting berries, killing farm animals, building farms, or fishing through a port. It is often the essential resource in the game, so there are many ways to acquire acquire it. Wood is obtained by chopping trees, gold is mined, and fate is obtained in the case of the Greeks by praying in a temple. With enough resources, we can create military, mythical, and siege units. One of the most important military units in this game is the hero. Heroes are usually extremely powerful compared to other units, can acquire relics scattered around the map that grant extra benefits, and are also the best unit to counter mythical beasts. Each civilization has its own mechanics for creating heroes. For the Greeks, it's limited to legendary characters like Odysseus and Hercules, as well as the campaign protagonist. We must also progress through different ages of our civilization, provided we have the required building for each age and enough resources. This allows us to access upgrades in our civilization, making us more efficient in gathering resources, obtaining new units, and allowing us to improve those we already use, as well as new buildings with unique functions. We also have to choose a minor god when advancing in age, each offering unique benefits. The choice will depend on what's best for you. You know, I'm always picking Dionysius, the god of party never disappoints. In a normal match, the Greeks can choose from 3 major gods at the start of the game, which will also significantly impact our playstyle. Zeus has better infantry, Hades has better archers, and Poseidon has better cavalry. Depending on who you choose, you'll want to make the most of each god's specialty unit, as this will be your big advantage in the game. Finally, the gods we choose give us different exclusive powers, which could originally be used only once per game, but in this new version they can be reused at the cost of a large amount of fate. Some of the best Greek powers include Restoration, which heals units within an area, Golden Skin, which turns your units into solid gold for a time, making them incredibly tough, Lightning Storm, where Zeus obliterates enemy units in an area with lightning, Earthquake, which shakes the ground, mostly affecting enemy buildings, and Abundance, which summons a building that gives us free resource every 5 seconds. This building is highly valued and can be stolen and used by the enemy. All of this might seem complicated if you never played an RTS, but it's actually a very simplified version compared, for example, to Age of Empires 2, which is still played today. There, if you choose the Chinese, you'll get a 30% boost of the resistance of walls and towers, and increase attacks for Chukonu and Scorpions, but will start with minus 200 food, and town centers have improved 7 vision. On the other hand, if you use the Khmer, you can have crossbow elephants. But then they are the Sicilians who start with 7 sections. Let's compare the best ship in the Norse civilization in Age of Mythology with the best ship in the Viking civilization in Age of Empires. We can see in Age of Mythology is the dragon ship, is a siege ship, good against arrow ships and buildings. Okay. Simple enough. Now let's see the Age of Empires one, and I'm actually playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Back to the story. Arcantos repels the invasion of the pirates led by the Minotaur Kamos, but during the battle Poseidon's creatures help the enemy, enabling them to steal the trident from his statue, a god who had always favored the Atlanteans. Realizing they are losing Poseidon's favor, Arcantos decides to join the fight at Troy and recover the trident along the way. We catch up to the pirates quickly, but Kamos escapes by surfing on a giant fish. The next stop is Troy, where Brian Coss welcomes us, and we must besiege Troy with the help of Ajax and Odysseus to rescue Helen. Having breached the walls, the Trojans pull the classical strategy that everyone does in these kind of games. The one that is, oh, you're attacking my base, I'll attack yours, and we'll both lose. So we have to fall back and help our allies who are in danger. Once the situation stabilizes, the Greeks want to retreat from Troy, but Arcantos decides they shall build the classic wooden horse that we all know.
A horse? Yes, a great wooden horse.
I don't understand. Will it fight?
Thanks to this, Troy falls and Arcantos accompanies Ajax to his homeland, Greece.
You don't think they can make it to Atlantis?
No.
Upon arrival, they find Greece devastated by bandits. Our heroes rescue Chiron, a centaur who joins the journey, and we meet the main antagonist for the first time, Gargarensis.
Enough babbling, coward. Come face me.
Gargarensis is actually an archaeologist searching for ancient entrances to the underworld, and he uses the entrance in Greece to escape into the underworld. But Arkantos won't allow these excursions on private property, so he follows him. Inside the underworld, he discovers that Mr. Gargarensis is trying to destroy the gate where Kronos is imprisoned. Naturally, we stop him, but Gargarensis escapes, and we must now search for another exit. Zeus grants our heroes a new exit, and we find ourselves in an unknown desert, where they meet a new ally named Aman-Ra, meaning it's time to play with the Egyptians. Egyptians are the first civilization to diverge from the classic gameplay style of Age of Empires. The available gods to choose from are Isis, Ra, and Set. The Egyptians' main distinction lies in their constant need for gold, the most challenging resource to gather in a standard game and often the first to run out. To balance this, the Egyptians can build several structures for free. Resource collection sites, houses, armories, and markets come at no cost. Other buildings don't require wood but demand extra gold. Even farms require gold. They throw gold on the ground and somehow food comes out. To generate favor with the gods, Egyptians build monuments that also protect an area from enemy god powers. Their villagers are the weakest in the game, but they have a pharaoh who can bless a particular building, boosting its productivity. Just like in the old days. The Egyptians' starting military units are a joke. Guys throwing rocks and other guys with spears. This is embarrassing. Throwing to the trash. The classic Egyptian strategy is to reach the heroic age, that is the third age, as quickly as possible, where they can create some of the best units in the game, like the war elephants, camel riders, and chariot archers. Among the best Egyptian units are priests, the default Egyptian heroes. They aren't very resilient but deal heavy damage to mythical units, are one of the few units that can heal other units, and can create obelisks. These are cheap towers with wide visibility that provide constant map awareness and control when used effectively. Some of the best Egyptian mythical units include the Sphinx, effective against buildings, the Giant Scarab, which poisons surrounding enemies upon death, and the Avenger, based on Horus, son of Osiris and Isis, a very annoying unit, especially with his Crash Bandicoot attack that damages all surrounding enemies, and also the Rock in Scorpion King. Some of the best Egyptian god powers are Vision, reveals a sector of the map instantly, Meteor, causing a meteor shower on enemy forces, Tornado, which spawns a huge tornado in the enemy's path, and the Son of Osiris, transforming your pharaoh into one of the most powerful units in the game. Led by Aman-Ra, are battling against Kemsi, one of Gargarensis' lackeys, who is searching for a new underworld passage to reach Kronos, with support from the Egyptian god Set. The Egyptian campaign involves reviving the god Osiris to aid us in fighting the Cyclops. To achieve this, we must find the different parts of Osiris' body. According to Egyptian mythology, these are scattered across the land after Set killed him. Meanwhile, Kemsit and the Set worshipping Egyptians race to reach the parts of Osiris first to prevent his revival. And so we start, and we already lost one of the parts. The first mission requires us to recover the first part of Osiris before it reaches the enemy base. The level begins with the enemy side practically winning. We must be quick and reclaim the piece. Once retrieved, we must defend it until it reaches our base, transported at the speed of Egypt's slowest camels in history, allowing plenty of time for the enemy AI to attack us multiple times. times. With the first piece reclaimed, our heroes are captured by Kemsit. Amanra is the only one who escapes and becomes our new protagonist. Tasked with rescuing her newly acquainted allies, she prays to Osiris, who grants mythical units and a substantial amount of favor to create more. In prison, Arkantos encounters Gargarensis again and learns that Poseidon, the Greek god who always protected Atlantis, now sides with the Cyclops. Amanra arrives to rescue him, and in the next mission we must invade the enemy fortress and retrieve again the piece of Osiris that was stolen. We're still fighting over the first piece, and there are like 3 more yet to be found. We recover the piece and Arkantos is exhausted, so he rests under a tree. But even in his dreams, he can't catch a break. Athena, who loves advising Greek protagonists,
Athena!
Don't let your rage blind you, Kratos.
appears in Arkantos' dream, along with his son Castor, who is still in Atlantis, asking to follow him with his insufferable whiny voice. Dad, follow me, Dad, over here, Dad. The game's true plot is revealed to Arkantos. So, long ago, Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon fought against the Titans. Zeus locked the Titans in Tartarus and became the king of Olympus. But over time, Poseidon grew envious of his brother's power. For this reason, he plans to release his father, the Titan Kronos, and with his help overthrow his brother. Gargarensis is chosen for this mission, believing that freeing Kronos will grant him immortality. Zeus can intervene directly, as it will lead to an all-out god war and the destruction of the earth. So Arkantos becomes the champion, destined to stop Gargarensis, Kronos, and their allies, saving the world from the devastation that another god and titan battle will cause. But first, Arkantos must escape this twisted nightmare. This mission is exhausting. We must destroy the underworld exit with catapults, but as we approach, 20 mythical units appear to ruin our lives, while Castor screams like a little girl in an endless loop of dying and respawning every 30 seconds. But the nightmare doesn't end here. Arkantos now disembarks in Atlantis alongside his enemies for a 1-hour battle where he kills all his friends and destroys his homeland and everything he holds dear. Wow, such a sweet dream. Upon waking, Arkantos remembers that we only have one part of Osiris and we're still around. The Pyramid of Osiris contains the passage to the underworld Gargarensis seeks, so our heroes split up to find the remaining pieces and take them to the pyramid to revive Osiris. In the first battle, we follow Amanra as she invades Kemsit's fortress to reclaim another piece in enemy hands. When we're about to defeat Kemsit, he flies away on a giant bird. The next mission is in Chiron's side, who must dig up a piece buried beneath a huge tree. For the first time, we encounter the Norse, who are chasing Gargarensis, as the Cyclops has also managed to rally the northern giants, causing chaos and initiating Ragnarok. This is why the Norse are willing to assist us. Now let's make a pause here to note that I completed the entire campaign on hard mode, okay? Because I'm a pro gamer who needs a real challenge, but this mission is just terrible. The hardest in the game and right in the middle of the campaign. The town centers are far apart, the few gold mines are also distant, and we are constantly attacked from all sides by enemy hordes and mummies emerging from temples scattered around the map. This level is relentless, excessively difficult compared to the rest of the campaign, so I had to call on the aliens. Because think about it, we are in Egypt, right? What's missing here? You don't think those pyramids build themselves, do you? No. If History Channel talked could mean anything is that aliens were involved. So here's what really happened. UFOs descended from space and wipe out every enemy on the map in 20 seconds. And just like that, this level is finished. Finally, Arcantos and Ajax recover the last piece, where they encounter Camus, who in a fit of madness leaps onto a spear and then throws himself off a cliff. With all the pieces assembled, the heroes head to the pyramid, where Gargarensis attempts to open the door to the underworld. Here they will combine the pieces to revive Osiris. This mission requires splitting our heroes as they come from different locations. We must create and manage 3 separate cities, keeping each safe from waves of enemy attacks, as losing a piece of Anubis means defeat. When the parts are finally united, Gargarensis traps the heroes, but just in time, Osiris appears and sends everyone flying and doing backflips. Naturally, Gargarensis escapes again, heading of course to the last civilization we have yet to encounter, the Norse. But before that, Arcantos and Ajax will have a little adventure. They come across Odysseus' ship on an island with some very strange pigs, and before you realize, the game just went furry. This small side quest to the main plot is inspired by the classic tale of Odysseus on Circe's island. In the story, Circe is a sorceress living on an island where Odysseus and his crew arrive after facing many dangers. Circe invites Odysseus' crew to a feast and poisons them with a potion that turns them into pigs, representing the sin of gluttony to which they succumb. But Odysseus, with the help of the god Hermes, discovers a pollen that neutralizes the poison. So when he accepts the sorceress' invitation, he drinks the poison but nothing happens to him. That's when he drops his sword and forces her to reverse the spell cast on his crew. She obeys, but she still has one last trick up her sleeve.
Odysseus, the only way I will turn your soldiers back to men is if you take me to bed.
Circe seduces Odysseus, causing him to stay on the island for a long time, until his crew convinces him to leave. It's even believed that they had up to 3 children together. In the game's version, it's Arcantos and Ajax who managed to break the spell thanks to Zeus' blessing, since Odysseus was also turned into a pig. They free him along with his crew and defeat the sorceress. We could say that in this version, Odysseus didn't have as much luck. We arrive in Norse lands, where Brock and Eitri appear, 2 dwarves whose forge has been taken over by mountain giants. The heroes decide to help them reclaim it, seeing that this path might lead them to where Gargarensis is located. And now is finally time for the Norse. Their mechanics makes them the most unique civilization, so the campaign wisely saves them from the last. The Nordic gods we can use include the well-known Odin, Loki and Thor, with the new addition of Freyr as DLC in this remake. Nordic villagers cannot construct buildings, however they can transform into Ulfsarks, the basic infantry unit for the Nordics. Additionally, we can create dwarves, whose specialty is of course mining gold, and they are faster at it than villagers. Unlike other civilizations, the Nordics don't need buildings to deposit resources. Instead, they use odds cards that can be moved wherever they are needed. Originally, these were produced in the town center, but now they can be built by villagers and dwarves. Military units on foot are responsible for constructing the rest of the available buildings, allowing you to build an attack with the same units, changing your way of playing a match entirely. Favor is gained through combat, representing the old Northern religion mission which encourage dying in battle. This forces you to stay in constant conflict to obtain the necessary favor. Nordic heroes are the Hersir, who can be produced in temples and are highly effective if upgraded. The Nordic mythological units are powerful. Valkyries have strong attacks and can heal wounded units. Mountain giants are slow but highly effective against buildings. Frost giants can freeze enemy units temporarily. Fire giants throw lava balls, and added in the Frayed DLC, stone giants are extremely durable and effective against buildings. Some of the best powers available to the Nordics are Spy, which when cast on an enemy unit shares its vision until that unit is eliminated without the enemy ever knowing. Healing Spring, which creates a fountain that heals nearby units but can be taken over by the enemy. Fimbulwinter, which causes a snowstorm where enemy walls appear from all directions to attack any unit in sight. Ragnarok, which transforms all villagers into Ragnarok heroes. And Nidhogg, which summons giant dragons that breathes fire on the enemies. Returning to the story, giants invade Midgard, sent by Loki, who is also aiding Gargarensis in his plans. You may have noticed that a god from each pantheon is helping Gargarensis, lured by Kronos' promise to overthrow their more successful brothers if they free him. This is a classic archetype in ancient mythology and even in the Bible with Cain and Abel story. In this case, Poseidon, Set and Loki are the chosen resentful brothers. Poseidon's choice is somewhat odd, as we are used to seeing Hades in this role, who is also a selectable god in the game, but I suppose it was necessary for the plot that Arcantos, an Atlantis god, to be the traitor, and they worship Poseidon, as worshipping the god of the dead will be strange, right? The heroes meet Skuld, an old man who tells them that the Nordic clans are divided and fighting each other. Arcantos plans to unify them, and Skuld offers his clan's banner to try to stop the battle and speak with their leaders. However, Skuld's banner only angers them more. In this mission we must defeat each clan's armies, but we can't produce more units and we are vastly outnumbered. The game makes you build a small fortress of defense towers and use the banner to lure the enemy into an ambush. This is a clever way of demonstrating different strategies available even in a standard game. After defeating the clans instead of uniting them, Skuld disappears magically. He was in fact a spy of Loki who tricked us. It's then that Leaf appears, a Valkyrie heroine under Odin's orders. She joins our army to unify the remaining clans and hunt down Gargarensis. Once the mountain containing the entrance to the underworld that the Cyclops use is captured, we begin a mission where the map is divided between Midgard and the underworld. We can only build in Midgard and we must send our army through the portal to stop Gargarensis from freeing Kronos while defending our city for barbarians and protecting the portal from enemy attacks. Despite all efforts, Gargarensis forces overpower us and Chiron sacrifices himself to allow our heroes to escape. In the retreat we encounter Brock again, who after Loki destroyed Thor's hammer, he was tasked with making a new one along with his brother. With the hammer's head already made, only the handle remains to craft, which requires wood from the underworld. In this mission we must cut as much wood as possible while pushing forward with our remaining forces to complete the hammer before the Cyclops army overwhelm us. Just in time, the new hammer of Thor seals the gate, creating an explosion that ejects all characters from the underworld. Gargarensis, frustrated, decides it's time to finish off the heroes once and for all, leading to one of the game's toughest missions, where we must fortify our city and survive a relentless 20 real minutes assault. I usually last only 5 minutes, no matter how many walls, towers and troops I create. However, the mission doesn't fail as long as one of our heroes stays alive. So my strategy was to abandon my ruined city and place a Manra on a boat in a small lake, where the enemy AI could only watch from the shore, while I made myself a nice coffee and waited. After 20 minutes, Odysseus, who was warned by Athena that we needed help, comes to our rescue. At last, we capture Gargarensis, and Ajax decapitates him. Arkantos is finally going back to Atlantis when he decides to take Gargarensis' head out of its original packaging, only to discover, surprise, we were tricked, we got the wrong package. Once again, fooled by Loki, we realize we actually killed Kensit, disguised as Gargarensis. So where is the real one? Of course, at the last remaining gate to the underworld, which happens to be in Arkantos' home.
Atlantis.
Arkantos reunites with his son Castor and Atlantis ruler Krios, realizing finally why Poseidon wanted Arkantos to fight a Troid in the first place. Poseidon wanted Arkantos out of the way so Gargarensis could access the underworld gate hidden in Atlantis. Poseidon also gives life to a giant statue of himself to protect the Cyclops while opening the gate. The long final mission begins and we must destroy all of Gargarensis' forces on the island and kill Poseidon's statue, which has a lot, and I mean a lot, of health and can crush entire armies on its own. After winning this battle, Arkantos heroically pierces the statue's head with a spear, who accidentally penetrates Gargarensis with his trident. Man, I really wanted to kill that motherfucker Cyclops myself. And so Atlantis sinks into the ocean's depths. Fortunately, Arkantos' friends manage to evacuate the inhabitants. But what happened to Arkantos? In a strange final cinematic, we see Athena awaken him, and without a word, he's transformed into a god, rewarded for saving the world from another battle between gods and titans. So yeah, that's all. Like and subscribe and Did you really think this was the end? We have one more campaign left, the Millennial campaign, which means it's time to talk about the Atlanteans. Remember at the beginning of the video when I said... Just remember this, they are Atlanteans in the story, but actually they are Greeks in the game. Okay? That's because the true Atlantean civilization was added in the Titans expansion. Released in 2003, this edition brings a new, shorter campaign that continues directly from the main story. The hero of this tale is Castor, son of Arkantos, who 10 years after his father ascended to the heavens to buy some smokes, he is deceived by Kronos. Kronos sends a demon that kills Krios and disguises itself as him. The Atlanteans are my favorite civilization to use, not just because I am millennial too, but mainly because of their villagers and heroes. If there's one thing that sometimes annoys me in these games, is constantly managing villagers, making sure they aren't attacked, placing resource buildings nearby, and checking they don't fall asleep on the shop once resources run out. Fortunately, the Atlanteans solved this by having the best villagers in the game. Atlantean villagers not only gather resources faster than any other, but also come with their own pack mule, meaning they don't need buildings to work. They have a higher attack strength than any other villagers, allowing them to hunt animals almost on their own, and can also become heroes, drastically boosting productivity in any activity. In fact, all Atlantean human units can be turned into heroes. This is the millennial civilization after all, where everyone is the protagonist. All Atlanteans can become heroes, just like us when writing Twitter opinions or raking up karma on Reddit. They can ascend as heroes, becoming extremely deadly against mythical units and highly efficient against all the others. And with the right demigods selected, we can reduce the resource cost for this transformation and even give them healthcare. Originally, the Atlanteans generated favor based on the number of town centers they control, something that was always a bit unbalanced in In a normal game, town centers are limited, and having access to more generally means you are winning. However, if you are losing and have only a few town centers, generating favor becomes extremely difficult, making it hard to turn the game around. In this remake though, they changed it so that favor is now generated simply by having scouts alive, just fooling around with their little glow sticks, which is strange, but definitely an improvement. Atlanteans can create infantry and anti-infantry units, useful only if applied against corresponding enemy units. I haven't mentioned siege units throughout the video because they aren't as crucial here as they are in Age of Empires, where it's nearly impossible to defeat any enemy without some trebuchets. Here you can more easily break down buildings with standard units, but I should mention the Atlantean Destroyer, a siege unit that I find kinda funny. It's just a guy poking buildings with a spear. Is great. Some of you may wonder if the architectural designs of other civilizations match the real world evidence we have in other wars. Greek buildings resemble those of ancient Greece, Egyptian structures mirror those of ancient Egypt. What about the Atlanteans? There is no proof of their existence outside of some strange notes by Plato, who might have been high on peyote when he brought them, and conspiracy theories that you can probably find in the Joe Rogan show. Well, Atlantean buildings are actually based on Aztec and Toltec architecture. Do Atlanteans have anything to do with the Aztecs? Probably not. The Atlantean gods, or rather titans, are Kronos, Gaia, and my favorite, Uranus. Some of the best powers available to them are deconstructions, which let you target an enemy building and make him watch as it vanishes before his eyes. Traitor, which converts an enemy unit to your side. Chaos, causing a limited number of units to attack whatever's nearby, including each other. Hesperides, creating a tree where you can summon a limited number of Hesperides, a fine mythical unit. Black Hole, which is just fun, drawing in all enemy units around it and imploding for massive damage based on how many units it absorbs. And Tartarus, which opens a portal to Tartarus, spelling out wolves from the underworld until it's destroyed. These wolves will attack anything nearby without discrimination. Back to the storyline. The surviving Atlanteans displaced from their homeland now underwater end up in a remote, cold and hostile land where they struggle to thrive. Morale is low until the fake Krios claims that the god spoke to him in his dreams, revealing that the solution to all their problems lies in an old temple somewhere in the area. The Atlanteans eventually find a passage to reach prosperous lands, and Krios explains that the passage belongs to the titan Uranus. There they find abandoned temples of Kronos and Uranus, and Krios suggests that after years of harassment and distress, they must restore Uranus temple. Some Atlanteans object, but Castor, innocent as ever, approves Krios' suggestion. Meanwhile, Greek scouts, witnessing this, are deeply offended, so they decide to dig up Castor's old politically incorrect tweets and quickly cancel him for appreciating temples dedicated to titans, probably misogynistic, fascist and child eaters. The Atlanteans fend off the Greeks and drive them away. Krios then urges Castor to start a war, but Castor hesitates and instead follows the Greeks to figure out why they attack. Meanwhile, Greece is outraged. News spread that the Atlanteans now worship titans and are on their way to destroy Greek culture. Though Castor claimed he only wanted to talk, our first objective is to eliminate the Greek generals. Somewhat contradictory, but okay. Castor doesn't get the answers he's seeking, but does gain the resolve to defeat anyone who opposes the Atlanteans. Egyptians and Norse reinforcements arrive to aid the Greeks, but Castor, who doesn't think like the boomer civilizations, retreats and decides to hit the enemy at home. Starting with the Norse, the goal is to destroy Odin's Great Temple, protected by Thor's powers through smaller temples on mountain peaks. To disable this defense, we replace the Norse temple with Kronos temples using his unique power, which allow us to move buildings through time. Technically through space too, but whatever. With his powers we can deconstruct a building and rebuild it elsewhere. The Egyptians, meanwhile, assume that their reinforcements sent to Greece are enough to neutralize the Atlanteans. That's when Arkantos, the absent father who has ascended to godhood, returns once more to the mortal realm to warn Amanra that the Atlanteans are coming for them. Despite its warnings, the Atlanteans win the battle, so Arkantos sends her back to Greece to defend it. Castor returns to Greece to continue his invasion, but Krios, who stayed behind with his troops, tells him, "Hey Castor, I found this new interesting passage. Why don't you check it out? This passage leads straight to Mount Olympus, and Castor now has to fight his way down, knowing full well he has offended every god of Olympus. In this mission, we can create new units, reinforcements arrive regularly, but we can convert our human units to mythical beasts at the appropriate temple. We need to create a balanced army of mythical units, each with unique abilities. Cyclops can pick up units and toss them, Valkyries can heal other units, and Manticores are some of the few mythical units with range attacks. Or you just can create 20 Cyclops and play dodgeball with the enemy. Castor finds a passage and returns to Greece, only to find what we all expected: Titans!
What is that?
That is a Titan. Only the lesser ones can escape Tartaros now. But soon they'll free the others.
No, this can't be.
What? Castor, what are you talking about, Castor? You've been restoring Titan elements since the start of the campaign. You destroyed everyone who worshipped the Olympian gods. You practically reversed everything your father accomplished in 30 hours of gameplay. And now you're surprised?
Why would you do this?
Oh, I didn't do it, Castor. You did.
Some Atlanteans want revenge on the fool that Castor has become and betray him. So now it depends of Amanra and Aishats to save Castor from his own people. We use the Egyptians again, holding off the Titans' attack for 15 minutes while sending two birds to rescue Castor, who for some reason decide to fly directly over the Titan. Castor reunites with Aishats and Amanra, and Arkantos, after his 10-year smoke-searching quest, descends once more to send us to fight against the Titans who emerge in Egypt and Norse lands. The Egyptians do what they do best, summoning Osiris, who, while not a playable god, might be in the future, who knows, if Microsoft continue adding content, and Microsoft loves money, so who knows. Our goal is to protect Osiris' son while he awakens a guardian capable of fighting the Titan. Challenging enough without constant enemy attacks and a Titan wandering around that we can't harm until Osiris' guardian is awake. In the north, we are met by frost giants. Why freeze the poor deer? Our goal is once again to hold off attacks until the arrival of Nidhogg, the only creature in the north that can face the Titan. Something almost impossible to pull off through regular gameplay. Luckily, the Titan is incredibly dumb, so we can distract it by hammering these toes until it gets sad and just stops moving. Nidhogg arrives, and the Titans can technically attack air units, so he just crashes things angrily while burning alive. We return to Greece, where the only Titan left standing continues to patrol the territory. However, we also discover a temple of Gaia. Gaia is the Titan of Mother Nature, and according to the game's lore, she's the only good Titan. When she regains her strength alongside the other Titans, she can help us fight against Kronos. Gaia has unique abilities that allow you to make your city much more pretty, filled with flowers and nature flourishing around all her buildings. This prevents the enemy for construction in this territory. Additionally, one of her powers is to create forests, providing us with a better source of wood than what is available on the map, as well as the ability to create natural barriers that are much harder to overcome. Thanks to her help, we defeat the last Titan, so there's only one place left to go, back to the Atlantean territory. But upon arrival, the city is empty and filled with automatons that ambush the heroes. The demon appears, whom Castor still calls Krios.
Krios! The Atlanteans will be torn apart by these things.
Even though he should realize by now that Krios never had wings, nor was he a demon. He literally grew up with the old man for most of his life, and the poor guy was killed at the beginning of the campaign. Yet Castor remains a bit confused. We must reach the city center and chase the demon through a passage, and it's a catastrophe. Towers shooting lightning, automatons, meteors. Fortunately, only the protagonists need to cross while the rest of the soldiers stay behind to die. On the other side, we find the old Atlantis from the original campaign, where Kronos is once again about to escape from Tartarus through the door that was there, only this time he succeeds. Kronos escapes, and behind him beasts from the underworld emerge endlessly. Our objective is to contain the advance of this beast while protecting Gaia's sacred pools, which we must activate by inserting the power of the seed. This summons Gaia, who, unlike in the original game, is no longer a giant woman, but she still has very good graphics. Gaia kicks Kronos' ass back to the Tartarus, burying him once more in the underworld, and even making trees and flowers grow on top of him, just for the lols. Only one enemy remains standing, the false Krios trying to escape. Just as Arcantos had his moment of epic action at the end of his campaign, now it's his Sunstorm, who begins an epic battle lasting 3 seconds. Arcantos descends one last time to tell his son that he isn't as cool and stylish as his father to become a god, but he must become the leader who will guide Atlantis in its reconstruction. And thus the Age of Mythology campaigns concludes for now. The expansion of the Chinese civilization with its own campaign has already been announced, and honestly it looks beautiful, unlike its release in the HD version of the original game, which was so bugged that missions never finished, requiring the use of a cheat to instantly send you to the next level so that you can continue the story. This resurrection of Age of Mythology is everything I wished for, not only because of the graphical improvements which the original game truly needed, but also the remakes of the incredible original soundtrack, the attention to correcting gameplay mechanics from the original game that didn't quite work, and the intention to continue expanding it by adding new campaigns, new civilizations, and new gods, all while preserving the essence and spirit of the original game. I hope it receives the same treatment as Age of Empires 2, which is now practically a new game due to the huge amount of additional content added. I truly believe this is the ideal way to experience this game if you never play it, as well as the perfect excuse to enjoy it again if you love it as a child. So this was the game that for the first time in my childhood I was so obsessed with playing that I had to ask my mom to upgrade our family computer to make it run. I had a Pentium 3 back then, and the Titans were just too big to fit on a Pentium 3, which is why we upgraded from 64 megabytes of RAM to 128 megabytes. What a machine that was, and it's because of these lovely nostalgic memories that Age of Mythology will always have a special place in my heart. Thank you for watching my video. There are probably more on the way, so yeah, see ya.